Hey, good morning. I'm hanging out with my good friend Mike Applebee. He has been a pillar in the real estate industry. He's been involved in land development, in building and growing title companies, in politics, in the new construction industry. You are a wealth of knowledge, my friend. And also, you've really personally helped me, my business, my career out. And what I wanted to do with the listeners today is really talk about what you're seeing personally in, the land development, in politics, in zoning. And we're going to go in the Wayback Machine for a second. You've been active in the real estate industry for how long?
Probably 35 years.
35 years. Just a couple.
Couple.
And so what first drew you into the real estate space? What brought you into this vertical?
It's interesting. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This is fun. So Anton and I are going to have a conversation for a while in front of a camera as opposed to what we usually do on the phone every day.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
If I look back, I was getting out of college. I was coming back up here. And I majored in basketball, so it wasn't really like I had a business degree, but it wasn't like I was setting myself up back here to move back into the state. And then my in-laws, my father-in-law was a major boat manufacturer in the area.
Oh.
And he came in and said, hey, I really need some help. It was the probably mid-'80s.
Yeah.
And he said, I really need some help for a period of time here. Would you come to work here? And would you handle the marketing and things like that?
Yeah.
So I kind of found something that I really liked, getting involved with people and doing marketing and things like that. And then I realized, I remember reading something back in my beginning era, which is completely different now, but 7 out of 10 millionaires made it in real estate. And so a millionaire back in those days was a big deal.
Really big.
And so that was kind of got my interest. And then I remember that I'd been in architecture design, going all the way through high school, and then I did houses all the time. And so I really liked the idea of creating something permanent and leaving something behind. So that got me interested in being involved in real estate and the development. And so the easiest way to get a start was I had a friend tell me, hey, you should get in the title insurance business.
Really?
And so then we started there. I spent about a year, and then we probably started 2 or 3 title companies over the last, for about 10 or 15 years, got tired of starting title companies and settled in. So that's kind of how I really got the start. It was something that you could create that was permanent. And then also the title insurance thing got me in a position where I could watch the entire market and study the market and watch the trends. So I began that a long time ago.
Yeah, you're literally like the oracle of new construction and land development in the north end of the Seattle metro here. Yeah. And I'm not even kidding when I say that. If you could go back and give yourself advice, like it's your first year of being involved in land development and new construction, what would you tell yourself or someone who's just getting started?
There's seed money is really important. Don't get outside your bar. If you're going to do something that you can't cash flow, don't just buy something because you need to get into it. Make sure you have a cash flow involved. Like, for example, have another job. Do 2 things for a while. You will not be hurt in real estate. Well, we had a ridiculous market in 07, 08, 09.
Of course.
And that's what really taught people to, hey, stay in your lane. Don't get too crazy. Always have some money in the background to keep it going. And there's a lot of guys. I think we had 225 spec builders in the market in 07 in our market here in Snohomish, North King. And we ended up with, I want to say, 19.
Yeah.
It was the only industry I could think of that didn't get federal bailout money and was a complete crash. Because guys were kind of just building their way out, so they didn't get foreclosed. They stopped their projects. They held. But that's been a once-in-a-lifetime thing that I've watched since the late 80s. There's been some other tough markets. That was one, though, that really taught you to, hey, I need to stay where I'm at, or I need to go find someone that I can partner with that has the cash flow, or also, I call it equally yoked, if you want to get biblical a little bit here, because know that they have the same goals that you do, same ethics and morals you do, and would rather step on a grenade than hurt their partner.
Amen.
And so if you can find that kind of marriage, make it work. And the cool thing about real estate was always, when you start a business like a title company or something like that, you're married. You don't have a way out. You have to stay in that partnership and both have to agree to sell or do whatever you're going to do. But in real estate, it's cycle. You can get in and out at every 2 years if you're planning on doing that. And that way, if it isn't really the right fit, you don't have to do that again.
Yeah.
And then you also have the flexibility once you get past a certain point financially where you go, okay, I can do it on my own now.
Yeah.
And you're not locked in forever. So it provides an enormous amount of flexibility. So, but to answer your question, I was thinking about this the other day because I was talking to my son about it. And he said, if I was to do this again,
yes,
I would have started building apartment buildings back in the late 80s. Go ahead and lock into long-term rates, start building them. And there's been one or two guys in our market that didn't make it through. But again, they got too far out ahead of their skis on what they were buying. And then market shifted and they weren't prepared. Every other guy I've worked with in this market that didn't get too far out in front, unbelievably successful.
Yeah.
I remember I bought a building one time and the guy was a builder. And I said, well, what did you do? What have you done in your career? Well, I built this building, that building, and that building, and now I'm done. And he was 70, and he probably did it when he was 30, when he was working with his father.
Yes.
And he'd been living off the income off those 3 buildings for his entire career.
Awesome.
And he just sat there and lived off it to a point where, and then it goes, okay, I'm tired. I'm just going to take my money. And that was kind of part of watching what I'm seeing now. As long as you can stay within a reasonable interest rate, it's a great annuity.
Yeah.
So redoing it, I would just do that. You don't get caught in sales market. Things always rent eventually. So just a thought.
So literally build, hold, wait.
Yes. Yes. That's why when you see that old saying, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. If you have the ability to hold, you'll always benefit. I mean, if you just look at the cycle of real estate that you and I are in, and you've done it enough, you know that, okay, my supply of land is shrinking.
Yep.
I politically am not capable of moving urban growth boundaries enough to supply enough land for the people. I've got to go straight up in the air. So that means if I own land, they're going to give me double the density as time goes on because I'm inside the line. Yep. And they're going to create more units on my existing property to, I've always felt that if you really want to make money in real estate, you have to change the use of it. Either that be through waiting for 10-year updates, rezones, comp plan amendments, things like that. And then the apartment stuff was more all about annuities.
Yep.
How do you create long-term wealth or income? I should say both, but how do you create long-term income? And then don't keep refinancing the cash out every year or two to try to pull some more money out. Have some things that you're going, okay, this is my 401k for when I'm 65.
Exactly.
And move forward. But yeah, I don't, if you're methodical about the way you go about this, just like people are with stocks, I say this line probably pretty regularly. My wife told me one time, she goes, I think the thing you do, here's a great wife compliment.
Yes,
it's kind of a backhanded. I think the thing you may do well or the best is know what you're terrible at. And so I go, yeah, you're right. That's why you manage apartments and I don't, because I'm terrible at paperwork. Our 2 worst renters we've ever had were my friends. And they never paid and they never anything. And I just went, okay, I'll stay out of that. Let you handle it. As a matter of fact, I'm not allowed to go in the parking lot. Because somebody gets free carpet, she says, if I go in the parking lot. So stay out of there. And so there's some strategy behind. You've got income producing, short-term, turn. You've got long-term hold, income, or wealth building.
Yep.
And you know the stat about the largest wealth builder amongst the entire middle class in the entire country is owning a home and real estate.
By far.
Yeah. And that's half the country, 160 million people.
Yeah.
So not everybody has a 401k.
Yeah.
And I don't know that a 401k gives you enough money at the time you're done to say, okay, now I'm covered. But real estate will.
Yeah, real estate will and always does. If you're enjoying this content and you guys like the land development stuff, hit that subscribe button and then drop questions and comments below. Mike and I are going to move over into kind of industry insights, development strategy. What's the biggest shift that you've seen in how land development works in the Seattle Metro or the whole Puget Sound over the past 20 years? What's really changed?
I think the time involved has changed. Even 20 years ago, there was still a planned process time that you could kind of plan on, that this subdivision or this land use action or whatever it was you were doing was going to be completed. Now you have to double up on that. You have to prepare.
Triple up.
Triple up, yes. You have to prepare. I mean, you could do a short plat in 6 months 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I look at it that even a short plat, a 3-lot or a 4-lot has, you're going to spend 2 years on that.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. I know some jurisdictions are better than others or advertise that they are, but you're right. I mean, the biggest change, what I've seen is we've figured out as an industry, we need to be politically active.
Yes.
In the last 20 years, we've got much more. We've partnered with our jurisdictions in a way to get in front and sponsor ordinances and things like that, and partner with our electeds to make sure they understand that, hey, here's why it's not working, and here's what would work. And we're the manufacturer of these subdivisions, projects, and things like that. We need to be at the table all the time if you're discussing it. Don't give us an ordinance that doesn't work, and then we have to come back and wrestle with you over the next year. That's one of the biggest things is time, our involvement politically to make sure that we're being recognized as a key part of this equation.
Yeah.
And in the past, it was always, well, let's see what they come up with, and then have to fight it after it appears.
Yes.
And then I'd say infill development.
Yeah, big.
That's the massive change. I know all the things that I've been involved in sponsoring over the years. Everything I've been working on is how do I hit a different price range? We have to find a way to get to a lower price range. So I sponsored the fee simple townhome ordinance here in Snohomish County, and pushed on that for, I want to say, about 3 or 4 years until we finally got it in the system.
Yeah.
And it was as stupid as, my son used to be an athlete. I hope he's listening so he hears that he used to be an athlete. But
shots fired.
Yeah. He was transferring back from the University of Florida to go to the University of Washington to play basketball. And so he was in, I think it was a 700 or 8 square foot, 3-bedroom apartment. Woo. That was the most horrific smelling thing you've ever been in. I remember going in there about the first month, dropping stuff off and go, wow, you can't live like this for the rest of your career. But it was near campus and they were all athletes. So we went and bought a townhome down in the U District and went, okay, you can get in here, and 2 other guys that are both athletes. Why don't I'll let you put them in here with you, charge them $100 a month. Yeah. That's it. To live in a nice, at that time they were $400,000, now they're $900. But to live in a nice townhome, it's got 3 floors. You've all got separate bedrooms, literally different floors. And it would help them out, because they were giving at that time, if you were a Division I athlete and you lived off campus, I think you got $1,200 a month in Seattle to live on. And other than training table for food, I mean, you can only eat that pasta so many days in a row. So you got to hit a pizza or something. So it was really a struggle for kids that were Division I athletes to go ahead and afford to live there. So we put out a couple other kids in there, but I thought it was a really cool deal because I went, wow. The millennials. So when 2008 hit, and everybody, all of us smart investors that were buried up to our knuckles in our mortgages and couldn't get out of our houses, I figured, okay, the only thing we can do up here is to start building these townhomes, because that would hit the millennials. We got stairs, we got a different price, we'll be lower in price than any single family home. So let's start this ordinance. So we got the ordinance approved, and now it's about 35% of all new construction in our county. And you go, as you know, you go 4 more years out, it'll be 65%
Yep.
of all of our for sale per product, and our single family will probably be more like 35%.
Yeah.
So it was as simple as going, this is a really cool product. I think this would work in Snohomish County. And now we've got thousands and thousands of units in the system, and it was need-based. You could see, and the weird thing about it, which we turned out to be lucky, the millennials didn't buy at the rate we thought they were going to buy at. The number one buyer was a single professional gal in her 50s, and then couples.
Townhomes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there was almost no kids moving into these. And I thought they were going to be millennials with young families, but I was really surprised at who the demographic group that picked it up. And when you think about it a little bit closer, when you think about a young or an older professional, and I can say older because I'm older than them. So when I look at that kind of demographic group,
Yes.
New construction, I don't want to fix anything. I want the safety of these walls around me in a closer community.
Yeah.
And I just need a little bit of a patch
Yeah.
so that my dog can do their thing. And then I've got all that safety involved. So, I mean, it really turned out to be a product that made sense. And even the bigger units turned out to be maybe husband and wife. Even the double masters and things like that were done turned out to be husband and wives. And when family came into town, when their kids and their families came into town, it worked really well. So it was a natural product. But right now there's some pushback because it just seems expensive for the price right now.
And so define for the listeners the difference between like fee simple versus condo, so they understand these different types of ownerships and why it's so important that you literally pushed for 3 years to try to create a fee simple product.
It's funny, we had a developer breakfast that we had once a month.
Yeah.
And every month I'd ask, how are we doing on the fee simple townhome ordinance? How are we doing on the fee simple townhome ordinance? And it took a couple of years for a lot of the builders to wash out of their older detached condo product, to finally get through those subdivisions where they would jump on board and support it. But I was trying to get it done early because I kind of saw the demographic thing happening. And I saw that, okay, the only guy, again, I thought was going to buy a house was somebody that didn't already have one.
Well,
so it'd have to be 30s.
And I think you even saw it you're not giving yourself enough credit here. I think you saw it in the zoning. You saw it in the planning. You saw that single family detached condo product was just going to go away. And then we were only going to be left with townhomes. Like that's where the state is essentially forcing us.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point too. You could see that we were wearing out or using up all that existing zoning for apartments and other things. How could we find something that would fit in between that?
Bingo.
And the difference between fee simple was really it's a subdivision of the property. Even though the buildings are attached, we have to process it like any other detached single family subdivision.
Yes.
And the property line just goes down between the party wall. And you're allowed private road systems that help you keep the development cost much simpler. And so you only have a 20-foot road with one side sidewalk rather than a 52-foot road with two side sidewalks, curb, gutter, planting strips, and all those things were an enormous amount of your, like right now, if you were to develop a single family subdivision, you're probably close to $125,000 a lot.
Bingo.
And if you're doing a fee simple townhome, you might get around $75,000 a lot, shorter distance, less improvements, all those types of things. It still takes as long to get it developed or get it approved, but it's a true subdivision. It's not treated like condominiums. And then the difference is that under a condominium, you're not taking it through the subdivision process. You're literally getting a building permit for a multifamily building, and then you're throwing a condominium over top of it, which is just an action that you get a condominium attorney for HOAs and condo docs, and you've done them, and then getting a surveyor to drop a map and plans. So you don't have to take that part through the approval process. That's state. The state approves condominiums. So you just record those after you've gotten the building permit. Just record the condominium as just a map, and now you've created separate ownership that way. Yeah. But you don't own the land underneath you.
Bingo.
It's all in common.
It's all in common. So then what happens is it creates financing issues. It creates HOA issues. It creates essentially like this weird chain of contiguous ownership, and then the problems start to stack up. So the fee simple alternative becomes such a better long-term wealth builder and ownership vehicle. So one, the industry thanks you for fighting for that for years. What would you say the average investor or builder gets wrong about the land development process?
Great question. So we teach a lot of classes, as you know, and the funny thing is, it's not going to be one person. It takes a village to do this stuff.
Yes.
And I would say that the one thing people get wrong on a regular basis, they don't do their feasibility correct. They don't really know what they have when they close. They don't take it through the process far enough to understand. Remember, this is an investment. This isn't gambling. This isn't just going, I hope it goes red, and something like that. We're not going to spin the dial. We have the ability to understand the property before we buy it.
Yes.
And we need to understand what offsite improvements it might take, whether they be utilities or anything like that. We need to understand how many units we can actually get there and what kind of units they are. So I've spent the last 10 years or so just trying to work with the real estate community to understand the changes and what's really allowed on this property, so that they're either making their personal investment. I've probably done it 1,000 times now, where real estate brokers are understanding what they're actually buying.
Yep.
Or that they understand that, hey, your future use could be this, your present use is this. Is this a good investment for you? Because if you have $50,000 and that's really all you have, and you're going to drop it into this one investment, why not make it the right one where hey, if I choose to, it looks to me like some zoning changes are coming or some ordinance changes are coming. And if they happen, then I've doubled down on my investment, and I should be able to turn in 3 to 5 years and get into my next one and my next one and my next one. And you asked me a question. If I would have looked back on what I would have done earlier, I probably would have started investing in real estate a little bit sooner. I want to say I probably would have tried to get there in my late 20s rather than mid 30s, because I watched as time went on. And how much, if you take a look, I think I've given this stat more. In the last 40 years, the state of Washington has increased in value in real estate 828%.
That's a mind-boggling number.
I know, and it's a statistic that's out there. And then I think Oregon's like almost 700%, but it's number one in the entire country. We've outperformed. We really don't want people outside of the boxes.
Yeah.
So
I think outside of the I-5 corridor.
Thank you. We are going to stay close to services no matter what.
Yes.
And, they put a line in place for growth management in Snohomish County in about growth management was 1990, but I think the first map I saw was 96.
Yeah.
And they said, here's the lines you're going to live in. We really haven't moved that line since 1996. Do you know how many people have moved here since then? And
I don't know.
300,000 probably.
Wow.
And so then if you take a look.
So slow down for 2 seconds. What is the Growth Management Act? Why was that put into place? Let's give the listeners a little piece of background and then fill them in on this, because this is such important information that the average investor, the average land developer does not understand.
I appreciate that. What we've been trying to do is balance our growth in the rural area a little bit better to allow for something under $1.6 million. So there's something we can do out there. But growth management, I want to say Maria Cantwell maybe sponsored that back years and years ago.
That's in the 90s, correct?
Yeah. And she might have started it in the 80s.
Wow.
And I'd have to, I don't have the number in front of me, but obviously if it was put in place in 90, and then the mapping showed in 96 is the first. I might have the dates off a little bit. But it was a planned growth strategy. You're not going to go way out here and start developing and make your own Buenos Aires, way out in the someplace completely all build your own city. We're going to follow this. And so they did a lot of analyzation and speculation and decided where these boundaries were going to be drawn around the cities and around our urban county area.
Yep.
And so they put those in their mind. They thought far enough out and what we didn't really understand in that process was they really put those there as to kind of try to make it their forever line.
Yeah.
And we've filled them in for the last 30 years. So now the plan is we're going to grow up and not out.
Yes.
Now we have to prove that we can go out, but every time that we try to put something together, long-range planning in the county, and I'm not being critical of the county, I'm saying they have to analyze. So every 10-year update, that's what they set in place. Every 10 years, they get to look at what land is available, and they get to analyze that land, and they get to decide whether that is enough land to handle 20 years of population growth.
Wow.
And in Snohomish County, that would be that they have to come up with some way to handle 200 to 50,000 people that would be moving into the county, and where are you going to put those people in the cities and in the county. So those lines were put in place to stop you from growing outside of them and grow up and not out. And so across the street, like down in Bothell, on one side of the street, it's 4 to 6 units an acre. On the other side of the street, it's 5-acre zoning. And that kind of follows a pattern all the way through Snohomish County. So it's a planning process that the government put in place to say this is how it's going to be done here in this state.
Yeah.
And this is how we're going to, about 53% of our state is covered in trees, I think.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that it stays as close to that as possible.
So in the early 90s, they put together a map.
Yes.
And they said, this is the I-5 corridor, and of course 405 and 90.
Yeah.
But these are the corridors. We want everyone here on the corridor. We don't want them in the rural area. And if I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, there's over 250,000 people the next 10 years that essentially need to move into Snohomish County.
Yes.
Where are they going to go?
They're going to go on top of each other. We're going to stack them up like a shipping container. Unfortunately, it's a tough way. I've been wrestling, and we've been working on doing infill projects to try to create homeownership. So just the idea that everybody wants to live in an apartment unit isn't true.
No.
And so all of the laws that we've been working on here at the state level, whether they be DADUs, detached accessory dwelling units, whether it be middle housing, whether it be DADUs in rural areas that we could condo, which is in Snohomish County, the one I worked on for the last year, that we got approved that would allow you to build a 1,200 square foot rambler on a 5-acre tract next to your home, and then condo it into 2.
And this is one of those things that I took advantage of.
Yes, and you did very well. And so we've had some carve-outs in that, as you know, that have had some changes for non-conforming versus conforming lots. And I think that's a big win that people haven't caught on to yet, because I can go to someone with a house on 5 acres and say, hey, I just want your 1 acre.
Yeah.
I'll record this condo map.
Yeah.
I'll give you, pick a number, 150,000, and I'll just take that 1 acre lot. The condo makes it so it's not land use.
Yep.
Land use wouldn't allow you to really do a subdivision on 5 acres very easily in the R5 5-acre zone. So here's we can make it by singles and doubles now when it comes to creating wealth or creating income or creating housing. And in the rural area, we can build 1,200 square foot ramblers. I don't care how many garages you attach. I don't care if you put an RV garage.
Bingo.
And all of a sudden, I have another marketplace for either seniors retiring, since we've got 10,000 people turning 65 every day. I want to sell that big daylight basement one I have in Mukilteo. I want to keep my RV next to my house, and we want to travel. So I'm going to do a 1,200 square foot 3-bedroom rambler. I got enough room for the kids and grandkids if they want to show up. And then I can come and go, and I'm going to buy that for $850 and sell this one for $1.9 million. And now I'm comfortable.
Bingo.
And then also starter homes. I mean, that's a starter home. I can be $850 or whatever the number is, and young families could buy that and also have a 3-bedroom house. So we feel that's a great fit for small plays. And then inside the line, obviously with the middle housing and DADUs, we're all in the middle of finishing up those ordinance with our municipalities. And the county's done. We got that one accomplished with some little bit of extra density. And as you know, you're working with Marysville on them finalizing theirs. So by July 1st, we should have all those in place and ready to go so that people can start looking at a residential house, just check and see if they have CC&Rs, and all of a sudden a residential house isn't a residential house. It's maybe 4 units, or it's a house and 2 dadus and a 3-unit condo. And so people, I think, have to start paying a closer attention to the fact that, hey, wait a minute, real estate brokers intentionally should be able to look at that and say, hey, I can get 2 more units on here. How does it change the value?
Yeah, I want our listeners and our subscribers to get three main points here. And the one is, out of those 250,000 people, where are they going? Do you believe they're going into North County or South County?
It's a great question. So if I was to push out a little bit further, they've done the math.
Yep.
There's actually 325,000 people if you go back to 2020.
Yes.
And then you move forward to 2044. There's about 325,000 people. 250,000 of those people are going to land in Everett South.
Yep.
And then 75,000 are going to land north of Everett.
Yep.
So let's just put it this way. Here's the simplest way to look at it. You're going to have to build another Marysville in the north end in the next 20 years.
Yep. Bingo.
I mean, you have to build a whole nother city, which is our second largest city in the county. And actually, if you look at present populations, you'd have to probably build one of these and one more Granite Falls or something. Or pick a city size. In South Snohomish County, or if you were to pick the whole 325, in the next 20 years, you have to build an entire Everett. You have to build an entire Marysville, and then you literally have to, and another Linwood and another Edmonds. And I get to make fun of it because I'm from Linwood. We won't build Linwood the same way again.
Oh yeah,
we'll do it a little different this time. But when I take a look at that, our 4 largest cities, our population is literally what we're going to have to rebuild in the next, go 4 years back and go 20 years forward. That's an impossible thing to do unless you expand and allow more property, because not everybody's going to land in that 7-story apartment building. But look what Everett's doing right now. You're in the middle of that. You know that they want to take, Broadway and Evergreen Way and go 15 stories up and down the entire road.
Yeah.
And they've been unbelievably flexible in trying to create density, because the state is putting a tag on their back and say, you have to take X amount of this population, and here's your projection. Show me where you're going to put them. Yeah. And they go, well, we don't have any place to put them. I mean, by law, you're telling me I have to create enough housing options. So they're forced to go straight up in the air because annexations aren't going to happen.
That was the second point I wanted all the listeners to get, is that you've got density coming in forced from the state level.
Yes.
And you've got density in the form of, more stories for multifamily. You've got density in the form of middle housing. Middle housing, for everyone who doesn't know, is essentially your duplexes, fourplexes, and sixplexes. You can go check out House Bill 1337 and House Bill 1110. 1110 is the middle housing one. And then the other one is the DADU one, which basically says you have to allow an accessory dwelling unit or a detached accessory dwelling unit, 2 of those in backyards. And according to the Oracle here, go check the CC&Rs. There's the mistake people make, because, and I'll give you an exact example, CC&Rs that we've avoided, it literally says only 1 unit per lot is allowed in the subdivision of, Terra Bonita 7 or whatever it is. So just double check that to make sure that that's going to be allowed, because we have looked at development projects for these DADUs and been like, that one's a pass. Oh, that one's a pass. Because the CC&Rs are preventing that. And, you actually also helped us even with that one in Lake Stevens, where the CC&Rs said something very unique on that one. They said only 1 home per 7,500 square feet. So we weren't going to be able to get the 2 DADUs in the backyard, but we are going to be able to get 1.
Right.
And so we're just going to build, at your recommendation and a few other builders' recommendations, we're just going to build a big old rambler with a covered back patio and RV parking, and some cute little old couple's going to pay for it and probably downsize into it. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at product and things like that, that's what I do. I look at demographics and things like that. Like I was up in, I think it's important that you look at demographics.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you look at average ages.
Yes.
Like, for example, in our county here, I think the average age is 36, and it's around the same in the entire state. In Skagit County, I think it was 43, if I'm thinking correctly, or something like that. And in Island County, it's like 46.
Yeah.
But you go back up to Whatcom County, for example, and if I look at their demographics, they've got that huge piece of demographic population in the early 20-year-olds.
Yeah, university.
It's college town.
Yeah.
Then they've got a whole bunch of kind of just barely numbers until they get to 65. Then they've got their two biggest groups are college and over 65. Completely underserved condominium market. Completely underserved stacked condominium market. And so we've got a couple of guys doing that. I bet you they pre-sell their buildings because that's a product because of state laws and insurance and lawsuits that have happened, that I think there might be one stacked condominium application in the whole county of Snohomish right now.
Wow.
And we've got 830,000 people. And it's a product and a price range. If you go back to when I was first buying a home or something, if I was a young couple or a single guy, that's how we got into, somebody rehabbed an apartment building.
Yep.
And that's how we got into homeownership, because we could go buy a 2-bedroom rehabbed condo or a condo of some kind. And then we stopped building them years ago. So that's forcing this DADU market on us to serve a part of the need community that we haven't done for years and years and years. So example, Ferndale, for example, when I looked at that, and I think this is important when you're providing product or you're building it, what's not served in your community.
Yeah, what's the hole?
Yeah. So the average age in Ferndale, for example, which is 20 minutes away from Bellingham, was 33. And the city was 38, and Skagit was 43. And when I look there, so that tells me it's young families that are wage-earning families.
Yeah.
They're working in Bellingham, 20 minutes away. And then I looked at the average drive time for their workers. It was 21 minutes.
Yeah.
They're 20 minutes away from a refinery, and they're 20 minutes basically away from Bellingham. So it told me all of those people are buying in Ferndale because they are hitting a price range, and that's where they can afford to buy, and that's where they can start a young family. So what am I building there? I'm building for that family group.
Yes.
So it's just a need. But this one right here we've been talking about, and you and I have been talking about, and you've been taking advantage of, this DADU thing. It was the land use part that was exciting for me to get away from. I don't have land use anymore. I don't have to wait for it. I just need to wait for building permits and utility permits. And that's a dramatic change, because if the city's doing it right, you should be able to get that stuff in 3 months, build in 5, sell and get out and turn your money inside of a year, rather than if I was to go do a 3-lot short plat in the city of Everett right now, I'm a year and a half on the approval. Then I get to develop, then I get to build. I'm over 2 years on 3 lots.
Yeah. And so this is shortcutting that process, massively increasing your cash turn, which increases your internal rate of return, which allows the mid-size builder developer, aka someone like me, the small builder developer, to all of a sudden start accelerating the growth of their business. I've been trying to tell everyone, Mike, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like, this is the biggest thing since PRD, LDMR, and probably the biggest opportunity that we'll see over the next 20 years is the next 36 months. Am I correct in that, or what's your feeling there?
What I think is fantastic about this is, you're right. If I were to look back on when we worked on the entire detached condo LDMR market, where that hit an absolute need. We could get a site plan approved. We could build a house that was more like 2,000 square feet, whether it be a 26-foot wide, 3-story skinny, whether it be the standard, close my eyes, I can walk through it in my head, the 30-foot wide, 45 feet deep, that type, 10-foot backyard. That was a great, and a private road system. so the development didn't kill us. And condo the lots, that was a great change. Then the fee simple townhome was the next big change for us on how we were going to create density and home ownership at the same time.
Yep.
And hit a size of a house that would allow us to be lower in price. Though this is, you're right, the biggest. But the thing about this one is, this allows anybody to be an investor and make money off of that. It doesn't take a really scientific real estate development guru to do this. You just need to know that, hey, I just need to do a quick feasibility. I need to have a planner do a quick feasibility, do a pre-app. In the city of Everett, for example, you can set up a pre-app today, and 7 days from now, turn in a little map to them and say, hey, I want to build this. Can I do this? Okay, yes, you can, based on where the house sits and what the zoning is, and you're good. Now I know I'm safe in my investment. I know that I'm buying something that has future use different than just the house.
Yeah.
So I'm not just getting standard returns like everybody else, or hoping I'm buying too cheaply. Rarely, as you know, do you get a inexpensively under the market type product. It usually has a lot of fur on it if you're going to get something wrong.
Yeah, there's problems.
There's problems. So people can actually become real estate investors and take advantage of the change of use under these new laws. And Everett, for example, is looking to go to 6 units on every residential lot, which is amazing. We've spent a lot of time working with them to not keep it at 4 units, but go to the max of 6, and that's going to be in front of council. And so that means every residential house that doesn't have CC&Rs, you could turn it into a 6-pack. You could turn it into 6 townhome units, 6 whatever you can fit on there. Mm-hmm. And then they're also using something that we're working on the county with. They're talking about form-based code.
Oh, yeah. Explain this, because this is a really big deal. This is very important.
We're trying to get the county, we're working with an ordinance right now with the county. We met yesterday, so that if you had a 80 by 120 box of a lot, that basically in your zoning, you can get X number of units.
Yep.
I'm going to draw a box inside the box with 5 feet of building setbacks all the way around. Go get as many units as you can under the zoning. Make them any way you want.
Bingo.
Make them attached, make them detached. We don't care. Just fit them in there. That is so much easier to plan for and try to fight all the little tiny ordinances. And as soon as we get it approved in Snohomish County, then we'll go on our road show. And we've already talked to the City of Everett about it. We've already talked to Marysville about it, our 2 biggest cities, and said, hey, is there a way for us to all get this? Is this a way that if I go into a city or a county, that I know that my process I'm going to have to follow and the rules are going to be the same? So when I analyze an investment, can I do it the same in everywhere?
Yeah.
And so that's our plan, is to try to go that way, so it doesn't become such a complicated vehicle that you're going, man, I don't have any idea what I'm doing. But there's just a few little check pieces that you can do. Yeah. And then also flippers have run out of property. They're completely out. And so our clients that are flippers, spent a lot of time with them saying, hey, don't flip that house. Matter of fact, one. And I've got 2 guys that were about ready to flip the house. And I went, well, wait a minute. What are you doing?
Yes.
So the other guy, we slowed him down, had him record a condo, flipped the house for what he was going to flip it for anyway.
Yep.
And kept 2 lots off the back alley as a part of it. So he kept units 2 and 3, and he sold unit 1, didn't lose any money on it. And he's got 2 detached dadu lots that he kept that both are worth about $85,000. And then he's going to build homes on those, and he'll make probably 2.25.
Yep.
By the time he's done on either side.
Yep.
And then we've got one other guy that had a house in Edmonds that he was talking about flipping, and he's. I said, well, wait a minute here now. You need to slow down a little bit. Just tear the carport off. Why don't you do it as a dadu condo?
Exactly.
So he's got a lot that I would say is probably worth a couple $100,000.
Yeah, because of its location. Yep. And Mike is referring to one of the homies, one of the immediate circle. And so we drive over there in the snow. That was like the last day of the snow. Yeah. And we're standing there, and I was like, oh, dude, totally keep this. This is phenomenal. And what's interesting, though, is, this is, once again, if you understand the zoning, if you understand the future use, if you understand the investment opportunity, you can take advantage of it, versus most flippers are just going to flip, not take advantage of the whole extra unit or two they could get there and just move on down the road.
Perfect.
So you made him an extra, I think it was 280 grand is what the budget says.
And he could make 400. By the time he's done, he's got a lot for free.
Yes.
He's got the house on the market right now.
Yeah. Yep.
It's probably close to what he was going to sell it for before.
Yeah.
And then it's going to cost him about $325 to build or so.
Yep.
You guys are working on that house for him.
Yep.
And I figured he's about an 8.25 house.
Yep.
Maybe. We got some other guys at Five Corners in Edmonds that are going to be at $725 for 1,000 square footers. And I know, and they're full-time builders. They aren't doing fee build.
Yeah.
But this is a great example for how do I make money in investing? And let's say that I don't want to be a home builder. Let's say that I just want to be a flipper. Okay, flip the house, but record the condo first.
Yeah.
Keep the lots, figure out whether you just want to sell the lots, but don't give away $200,000 in equity just by spending $8,500 to record a condo, a map, condo declarations, and do an HOA.
Yeah.
And we both got a long list of guys that we say, here, all these guys will do it. It's dadu in a box.
Exactly.
And just follow the program. But it's a great opportunity for anybody to say, wow, why wouldn't I just rent the house out for a while I do this? And then I'll sell the backyard off and then pull my own equity. I kind of felt like Everett, and you tell me if you think I'm wrong. I kind of felt like Everett, maybe those detached or maybe those dadus in Everett that if I did a duplex dadu off the alley, maybe I could pay $75 aside.
Yeah.
And so somehow I've got now a lot that I can pull equity out of. I can sell those two lots in the alley.
Yep.
Let a builder do it. Pull $150 out of the house immediately.
Yep.
And get a bunch of all my cash back.
Yep.
And then still have the house.
Yep.
So I think it's kind of a nice play because what I've seen was you're going to maybe lose $25,000 or so to $50,000 on the value of the house.
Bingo. So I mean, because we one of the ones we did in Everett right now, I would say depending on the neighborhood, you're going to lose 5 to 10% on the front value of the home. Yeah. And so the one that we did specifically on Virginia, I thought the house was worth $525. It went under contract for $493.
There you go.
I mean, just those are real numbers. That's a real life example.
So you paid $40,000. You paid $7 or so grand for doing the
Bingo.
condo. You got some closing costs and everything like that. But it sets you up for the profit on the other house.
Bingo. And that's really where the kicker is on that one. And so I want to hit what I call point 3 of your message really loud and clear so people understand. Point 3 is Washington appreciated how much over the last 40 years?
828%.
And that was number what in the nation?
Number 1 out of, and I think we still have 50 states.
Number 1 out of 50 states. And that is due to the Growth Management Act and this forced control of where homes can be built. So I know you don't have a crystal ball, but looking out into the future, do you think we will have above average appreciation relative to the rest of the nation in Washington state or below or at average?
That's a great question because I've been kind of watching it a little bit for our own purpose and everything else. But it's funny, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. We were doing a talk and I said, hey, I'm a little more in the brown banana stage of my investment. I'm not in the green banana. Yeah. So, but now that you've kind of sat here and watched how it works all the time, real estate isn't a perfect system because it has a lot of outside pressures.
Yes.
And right now we have more outside pressure, unfortunately, than we had planned on. And whether it be politically motivated, whether it be anything, it doesn't really matter. It's a reality.
Yeah.
Our entire market right now is sucked into interest rates.
Yep.
And
100%.
And insecurity on the job market. I don't think in the long term we should be worrying about an insecure job market. I really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the government intentionally has been trying to drive us to 4.5% unemployment rates. Some states it's going to be higher, some counties it's going to be higher, but basically in the central Puget Sound it runs about 4%. And when the government's intentionally trying to do that and slow the economy and drive up interest rates to slow things down and lower inflation, I think think we're pretty close to all of our targets, but you can point at interest rates as being the one thing that has ground us to a stop. We have a lot of people not selling anything for the last couple months. We've watched the market, and it seems like things over 2 million, where it's buyers that don't care so much about interest rates, are selling like crazy.
Yeah.
Things under about 800,000, depending on the community you're in, those are selling. But it seems like the stuff in between new construction.
There's kind of a stuck middle in new construction right now.
And that used to not be the way it worked. It was the move-up buyer that really focused on that 1-1 to 1-2 house and forced the market up.
But that move-up buyer's locked in, so they're not flipping up, and that's not creating that pressure on the middle.
I want to see that conversation you're having with sellers about listing their house. Like, what interest rate you at? 2.8?
Yeah.
I don't know where I go next.
So we're going to go from 2.8 to 7.
Yeah.
Your mortgage payment's going to go up, 200%. How does that sound?
I feel like going my next line is let's do hand puppets, because I don't know where to go on my next conversation other than the fact that more real estate is better.
Yeah.
And who says you have to sell this house unless you need the equity to sell? Then we have to have a different conversation. But there's other ways to do it if you want to make real estate your investment tool. And so I'm just saying, in the long run, it's a no lose. I'm not very good at stocks because I don't follow them.
Yes.
I think it's gambling to me, because I would say, well, hey, that guy looked good on TV. That would be something that I would buy, because I think I understand what's coming.
Yep.
But I'm really gambling because I know nothing about their structure, nothing about the people that run it. Real estate's a physical thing.
Yes.
I understand that we're not, again, making any more. And in the state of Washington, we're making less.
Yes.
Because we're stacking up people, but not giving us the opportunity. And the government's saying, hey, that place that you could get 2 lots on, now you can have 6.
Yeah.
And so they gave me free money if I chose to sell or move or do anything else. So I think it's just created a great vehicle for people to continue to move forward. So let's take a look at what's happened over the last 3 years. We average about 13 or 14,000 sales a year in Snohomish County.
Yeah.
And let's say 13.5. We've been selling about 8,000 to 8,500 for the last 2 to 3 years, and we're in kind of that track right now.
Yep.
That tells me that we've got about 5 to 6,000 buyers a year that have been stacking up, plus people moving into our market.
Yeah.
We've got easily, pick a number, 20 to 25,000 buyers for Snohomish County that haven't bought. Every time this built-up demand finally releases itself,
yes,
we get this crazy market again. We get in 04, 05, 06.
Yeah.
We get the after or during COVID, which nobody saw coming. No one could have predicted that craziness.
Yeah.
We get another COVID market because all of these people have been on the sidelines. What would it take? I think emotionally, get me to 5.9.
Yeah, just under 6.
Rate.
100%.
I ran it this morning, and you and I know this stat. I run 10-year T-bills.
Yep.
And 30-year mortgages, because they kind of track each other so closely. And what's the 50-year average of the difference between the two?
1.8.
1.8. And I ran it this morning, and we're at about 6.9 on interest rates, and I think we're at 4.6.
Yeah.
So it's about 2.3.
Yeah.
The thing that it's disappointing to me is if you take a look at credit scores, because I hear it's because of the risk. I don't know that I believe that it's because of the risk.
There's a greed component on there.
There's a padding of the difference because I'm doing less mortgages.
Yes.
So we could easily, just in a normal marketplace, say, okay, I could drop a 0.5 point right now and be at 6.3. The government kind of takes the pull off of us. I feel like the real estate industry always gets squished every time there's an economic problem because the only thing they can control is interest rates, right?
Yes.
So we've got that going on. We could easily be at 5.9 next month if we would drop the Fed rate a couple times, which they could drop it twice here if they choose to. And then all of a sudden, then lenders get, I was looking at the average credit score at like over 760.
Yeah, the average credit score is up. The average down payment is up. These buyers qualify more than any other buyers in history.
Yeah. Loan to values are way better than they were. So I mean, there's some leverage points that need to happen in this industry that we could easily take off again. And again, affordability is a factor, but okay, if you take a look at what they say about the change in, like we went up, I think about 2% in the first quarter, maybe 1% in the second quarter. Now we'll be flat in the third quarter and maybe go down in the fourth quarter. But if I'm an investor, I'm buying then. I'm buying in the fourth quarter. Do I think that we've got a real estate chasm coming? Absolutely not. We just have too many people coming this way.
Yeah.
We have a pressure point because of interest rates.
Yeah.
And that's what I see right now. And if you take a look nationally last month, it's the first time in a long time that now we have 1.4 million buyers and 1.9 million listings.
Yeah.
So we've bumped up a number, and here locally, we have that same thing going on. So I really feel like investors make money when the market's down.
Yes.
And when the market goes down this second half of the year, that's when you should buy something.
Yeah, you should always be buying as this transition happens. And we did another podcast where we dug into that data at a really deep level, because Redfin got purchased by Rocket Mortgage, and Rocket Mortgage now has to recuperate the $1.75 billion that they overpaid for. So they've been running all of these scare tactics. But when you dig into that number, 259,000 of the 500,000 is condominiums across the United States, with a high concentration in the South and in Florida. Imagine that. And so
that's a great stat.
It's a great stat. So that number that they were pontificating about, that then social media lit on fire, that was a scare tactic to generate leads. Because we all know the condo market is always slower than the residential market, and the condo market gets beat up more in a time of transition.
Always.
It always has. And so I want to switch gears just to kind of politics and advocacy for just a half a second. I've heard you say the phrase that you don't like, this phrase, affordable housing. You like a different phrase. Tell me more about that and what that means to you and what the industry should be paying attention to.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I think a couple of years ago, I started talking about Attainable. And I struggle with, so my phrase is attainable homeownership.
Yes.
I think housing is such a generic thing, and it's not very sexy, and it's hard to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's hard for people to get behind housing.
Yeah.
It's so generic. But affordable homeownership, now we're talking about families. Now we're talking about people building wealth. Now we're talking about people growing in their ability to feel comfortable and
stable,
safe.
middle class, strong communities.
I'm locked in. I'm established. I care about how my investment looks. I'm more ingrained into the community.
Yeah.
And I feel that that's the benefit of talking about attainable homeownership. That's the benefit in, like I said, everything I've been working on ordinance-wise over the last 10 years has always been related to how can we put more things on the same property and make them homeownership and not rentals.
Yes.
And again, apartments take care of themselves. They are what they are. But the rest of it is we can get a little bit more creative because we got to get smaller square footages.
Yep.
We can get we've got 1,000 square feet that we can do 3 bedrooms in.
Yep.
And we can still get a bath and a half, 2 baths. We can still get a kitchen. We can still get a small family room. And so we have the ability to put people in that. And again, 10,000 people turning 65.
Yep. That's
all about politics right there. That's the interesting thing. How do we get our electeds to understand that first-time homebuyers are strangled?
Yes.
Because they can't get there.
Because it's
They're
unaffordable.
Well, the numbers that I always use used to be 31 was our median age of a first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
38 last year.
You see, that's a ridiculous stat. So that's stealing a decade of growth because politicians are preventing our communities and our middle class from growing because we're preventing home ownership.
And I would caution our electeds. We've told them this over and over again. You have state laws in front of you right now for DADUs and things like that. That's an opportunity to allow people young families and other people to enter into your marketplace. Do not ordinance do not tree ordinance,
Yes.
don't lot coverage, floor area ratio, those ordinances right out of your books, like we're dealing with 2 cities right now that are intentionally doing that.
That are intentionally blocking the state law because of our home ownership crisis. And hopefully everyone feels me get a little passionate about this. And Mike and I both are, for this matter. Him and I volunteer on political action committees because we are so pro middle class, supporting the community, supporting housing. We donate our time and our money and our resources to help the communities. But all of a sudden, a local bureaucrat can then decide to circumvent the state by putting just little minor roadblocks, but this is the death by 1,000 cuts.
Thank you. I think that, I wouldn't have thought of that. And when you said pontificating, I was going, that's 5 syllables. I got to look that one up. I got to figure out if I can know that one. But we, the Linwood in me kind of went, oh man, I better stay away from that word.
Hold on, I'm an Arlington boy.
Oh, there you go. That's right. So, well, I mean, that's where we're at. So what Anton and I and another group and what I've been doing for probably 20 some years is realize that all land use is politics. And we have some unbelievably helpful politicians in ours that I don't want to use the word politician, stakeholders. Let's use the word stakeholders because we have some people like at the county council in Snohomish County. When we bring an ordinance in front of those folks, it's because we've thought through it and said, hey, this is blocking this from happening. This isn't serving your citizens. Because remember, your electeds are here to serve the citizens.
Yes.
And they need to understand that there is a ongoing problem with creating homeownership for their citizens unless they get on board with this. And trying to use trickery to try to find a way to not create this, it's just a backwards thinking, and they need to get on board with where it's going. You know what the average age of a purchaser was last year?
No.
It's like 58.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible.
I mean, I couldn't believe that the number had gone from like the early 40s up to like 58, and then the average age of a repeat buyer was 61.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's completely missing the idea of why we were supposed to create a homeownership and opportunities. Again, it creates family values. It creates stability. It creates an enormous amount of things. Therefore, smaller houses created quicker, no land use, just building permits. I think another stat that I saw the other day, in 1996, 26% of all the equity in homeownership were under 36-year-olds.
Wow.
Now it's 5%.
Wow.
So that kind of gives you that they're making me create wealth when I'm 45 to 50.
You're missing the 2 decades of growth.
And now I can't afford that payment. So so you can go back into affordability. But for me, it's attainable homeownership, not affordable housing.
Yeah.
I think that's an overused phrase that we need to come away from, especially in our industry, because we're trying to create homeownership.
Yeah.
We do not want, right now we're creating an entire generation of renters. Tell me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not.
I mean, no different than all these other ones. I love my kids, but they need to find someplace else to live. And so let's create a place for them to buy. So the average age now of your, not your Velcro kid, or excuse me, not your bounce back kid, but your Velcro kid, the average age of somebody moving out of a house is 26.
Wow.
I mean, I was out of the house at 18, 19, going to college, coming home going, wow, staying at home is weird.
Yeah.
I'm used to my own freedom. And then I was out of the house at 21 or 22 and never moving back.
Yeah.
But that was a different generation. But I see that if the situation is a little more forced and the kids are going to like, okay, I got to make it work, they'll make it work.
Yeah.
I mean, you've raised them to do that kind of thing. But I think now that's the disparity, and that's why you're seeing the younger, the millennials and below kind of rebelling a little bit. Man, I can't find anything. I can't buy anything. I don't want to live in Tenasket. I work here. I can't work from home, right? And I don't want to be in Darrington. I can't get that far, and I can't get out of their house in the snow and all the other things. So how do we do that? Well, we do it by what we're doing right now. Advocacy with our electeds. Spend an enormous amount of time. We had a function last night that I was telling you about. We had our elected officials banquet. last night, and it went really well. I mean, we had an enormous amount. Almost every city was represented. The county was represented. We brought some speakers in just to thank them and show them what they have done to help us create homeownership opportunities. Because I think it's important that number one, they talk to each other. Because we have now, I think we have probably 32 different DADU ordinances, depending on what city you're in.
Yep.
Nobody really shared their notes.
Yep.
And everybody has a little bit different ordinance, which doesn't make a lot of sense because it's a state law. You just follow what the rules say.
Yep.
But everybody tweaked it a little bit, and they didn't need to. I would say my last thing for getting on the soapbox, whenever they come up with ordinances, we are standing right here. We have so many organizations, master builders and others that will be at the table with you. We're the manufacturer of that home.
Yeah.
We're the manufacturer of that DADU. We're the manufacturer of that middle housing unit. Bring us in. We'll work with you to create the ordinance so that we don't have to come after you in a year and say this doesn't work. And almost all of them we have to fix.
Yeah, yeah, because there's a massive difference between boots on the ground in the field application versus writing the code on a piece of paper. To flip it back, just so the listeners and our subscribers totally understand, the Growth Management Act, does it draw a line or define between home ownership and renter, or is it just units? How does this work so that people can really understand where our state is pushing us, whether they want to or not? It's driving down this road.
Well, I mean, if you want to chew on your lip for a couple of days, read that Growth Management Act. Originally, when I thought it was put together, I thought there was a percentage in there. So it's a great direction you're going with that question. I thought there was a percentage back in the day that said 20% had to be a homeownership opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anything about that. This is just roofs over people's heads.
Bingo.
This is just covering your head and with 4 walls, a roof, and a floor, and how do I get you into a unit? And again, that's how I create the entire generation of renters. And we all want our kids to flourish, and we all want them to have success, and we all want them to have a happy household. And I think we're helping that by doing what we're doing right now and helping them create wealth at an earlier age. So you're right. It's just the number of roofs. So I can so much easier, if I just had a house and 2 DADUs in Everett on a 8,000 square foot lot, that's not going to do a lot to help me meet my requirement that the state has given me for population and housing. But if I change that to 7 stories, I've met my requirement.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to build that for 25 years, but I've met my requirement, but nothing changes. And now those properties are blocked out of use for homeownership. They're just stagnant and they have to sit there until the market catches up with them. But I've taken care of what the state requires me to have an allotment for future housing.
Yeah. So for the listeners, what that means is, let's just say it's on Broadway for conversation's sake, and you've got 7 properties in a row. The zoning will allow for the future use, but the economic value of the land has to be there so we can afford to dozer it, afford to pay for the expensive parking, and then come way out of the ground. So what happens is they can use land use and zoning to say, hey, you can go vertical, but the problem is the cost of going to that level of vertical past 4 stories becomes economically unfeasible until some major point in the future. It's way down the road.
And I don't think you can build under a certain amount of units or height on those properties either.
Yeah.
Because once I go to steel construction and parking under buildings and garages in the ground, unbelievably expensive. So we haven't gotten there yet. Well, a good example for what we talked about, our friends in Seattle, they came up with their own DADU ordinance. They call them a 3-pack.
Yep.
Existing house. Now, they had to amend their ordinance under the state law, which they're doing right now. They had a 3-pack where they built an existing house. They added an ADU to the house detached. And then they had a separate DADU, and almost all of them had an alley in the back because they have the old alley process. And when they first wrote that, it was maybe they were building 200 of them or so.
Yeah.
Then it went to 400.
Yeah.
Then it went to 900, 900, 900, literally 1,000, a few units short of 1,000 for 3 years in a row. And they've sold them like crazy. And it's created homeownership options in the 6s, 7s, and 8s in Seattle for people to have residential homes and own a home that has a foundation on the ground.
Yep.
It might be attached, but it has a foundation on the ground. It's not stacked condos. And so I know that market is chilled because of interest rates, and that buyer is much more sensitive to interest rates and payment changes. So that market gets itself knocked down pretty quickly in a high interest rate market like this. But that tells you the kind of effect. See, we have a great example of the kind of effect we can have on Everett. I don't know how many permits are in now, but if you take a look at anything in North Everett that's on an alley, I don't want to make that creepy analysis, but that has future development, has dadus, we'll call it that way, and has access.
Yep.
Almost everything in the market, sell. Yep. I bet you we've closed 25 different properties just immediately. They all get sold within 30 days in North Everett because we've got, I want to say, what do you think, 12 to 15 dadu builders now?
Oh, I think it's more
Seattle.
than that. I think we probably have 25.
You think we're there now?
Yeah, I think there's 25 because I got calls over the last month from people coming up. So a gentleman that we know that's also a real estate broker, who is also a builder, called and said, "Hey, I'm coming up your way. I need these in Everett for my son. Hunt me down some." And it's interesting. It wasn't just him. It was another one too. "Hey, coming up to your hood, need something." And I was like, really interesting. So they see it as a mechanism because, they're building in that 1.5 to 3.5 range. So they see it as a mechanism for them to build, not necessarily make as much profit, but the timeline is shorter and the risk is lower when debt's expensive.
Cash flow.
Yeah, cash flow.
So think about that if I'm an investor. I can go to the investor and say, I'm going to turn your money in a year. You don't have to get locked into this thing for 2.5 years. And by the way, I didn't tell you, but in 2.5 years, you're going to have to loan me a lot more money again.
Yes.
Because now we've got the double down and I got to develop and I got to get started and I can't get you out of here until I get it all developed and done and I can go on to a construction lender. I think the good thing is what people don't really see enough of is the people that have been selling these homes in North Everett, they wouldn't have got that price. They wouldn't have been able to capitalize on their investment. The majority are elderly that are selling that want to capitalize all this money and move on to something else because either they can't stay in the home or they've chosen to move into something else or retire or move off. Everybody's benefiting from this. The younger person that could buy that home and afford to when they finish the dadu, I think what you'll see is almost like the townhome demographic. You're going to see a lot of seniors buying those 1,000 square foot.
I totally agree. Yes,
it's a 3-bedroom. I can afford to buy it. I can sell and move down.
Yep.
I'm close to services, which we forget.
Or literally maybe their daughter and new husband move into their house in the front and they build a cute little 600 to 1,000 foot rambler in the backyard instead of the 2 units, and they just literally move in the backyard.
I think it's a great fit for a little bit of everybody. But again, it's not just builders and investors that are making money. It's actual people that own the home that have been locked into that house for 20 or 30 years. They're benefiting from this new ordinance as well. So everybody gets to share in the wealth. And it's a product that's going to fit both of those demographics, that 25-year-old and that 65-year-old. We've got an enormous amount of county, city, and state workers in the city of Everett. And there are a lot of us are in that baby boom. The number one, well, we were the number one demographic in the country until millennials kind of slid in there and took our place as far as population goes. But we still are by far it's a record the amount of equity, home equity that we have, because in our generation you bought a house. And that's how you created your some of your wealth, and then 401ks and other things. But again, it's been nice to see that you can turn it into something inside of a year. You can literally sell your house in the front, take all the equity and go buy one in the back and a small one and a new one and easily make that whole thing work. And I think the last thing I saw, I thought the number was getting pushed up a little bit, but I think the 4 or 5 sales I've seen have been all the way up into just short of 600. So I guarantee you
that North Everett or the not perfect home in Everett was 500. and it's already getting pushed up in value because of the activity.
550.
Yep, 550, 575, 600 all day long.
And then now the backyard daddy is almost 600.
And then, so I want to go with one more thing here.
Sure.
So in relation to the Growth Management Act, there is a bureaucratic body called the PSRC.
Yeah.
What is the PSRC? What do you do in relation to that? And what does that mean for zoning, density, or buildable land in our area?
It's funny. So I sit on Snohomish County tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm your citizens representative for Snohomish County. I think I think we have one or two more. The county asked me to sit on here because they wanted more deep involvement in land use from the citizens representative to have input. And I get the benefit of having the entire county as kind of my backyard on what I track and what I'm involved with. The other people on the committee are either city council members, members of the county staff, county council members, planning directors from cities, mayors from cities. That's usually the representative group, but they're pretty focused on their city or their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And so they're tracking that. And I think the group in general has the right idea, because what they're trying to do is at least let everybody have a presentation from whoever that housing body might be for what is coming in the future and might be options. And we make what I'd call a recommendation to the county council. And we make that recommendation to the county council on whether we approve or disapprove or take no vote or take no approval either way, and send it to the council. And then they actually hear on it and make a decision as to which way they want to go. The Puget Sound Regional Council is kind of the overseeing body in my mind for all of us.
Yep.
And I'm not real positive about it.
Yep.
So I don't feel it. I mean, I want to stay in my lane a little bit because they're part of our group monthly, but I feel their overreach has been too strong. I'll give you a great example, which actually bothers me more than any of the other things. And I've argued that point with them as well. I've already argued 2 points with them. Basically, hey, I don't know that the citizens of Snohomish, I'm acting on behalf of the citizens. And I said, I don't know that the citizens of Snohomish County are looking to all live in 7-story apartment buildings. So I'm going to act on behalf of the citizens, not the city, who has to meet a population requirement and a housing requirement. I'm going to tell you what we want. We want something. We want some options.
We want a backyard.
Yeah, and we want we want something that we can buy.
And we want it to be affordable.
Thank you. So help us in those areas, PSRC. Don't dramatically fight so hard to keep us out of rural areas. And I feel that is their entire focus in my mind, even though there's a lot of other focuses on their part. So that was my one complaint.
Is keep us out of rural areas, and then also prevent the expansion of the urban growth boundaries, which would allow us more units and not have to go vertical.
And they oversee the plan that the cities and the county turn in.
Yep.
And then they, in their mind, approve them or agree that that's fine. And then the state approves them, obviously, anyway. But they're the kind of the governing body of that, in my mind, of all of these growth management plans, and telling us how we're going to live and what we're going to live in. That's probably a little bit sarcastic, but I think they've practiced an overreach. And the one thing I think that's bothered me the most, we have, I forgot, 10 to 15%, let's say, of our population in the rural areas. And it's probably, what do you think, 80 to 90% of all of our area is the rural areas? 90.
Yeah, maybe 95.
Okay, there you go. And in Snohomish County, they told us the other day that you can only have 4.5% growth of all of this 325,000 people that are coming here.
Mm-hmm.
You can have whatever 4.5% works out to be. You only get 15,000 people.
Yeah.
During that entire period of time that are supposed to expand into that rural area. And I go, come on, are you serious? We're not even close. That's basically that is just too heavy-handed. Number one, that kind of screws us up for all of our values and how we're going to spread out, and tells people, no, you're not going to live out there.
Yep.
And that includes people that have a 5-acre lot that want to build a home. And if we go outside of that, and let's say, because we run about 6.5% growth, and we could run a lot more if we had the availability to do things a little bit differently. So I take a look at that as them just saying, hey, no, you're all going to live in some level of apartment building or some level of density. The majority of the votes of the PSRC are out of King County / out of Seattle.
Yep.
So it's almost a live like us.
100%.
And okay, maybe you're telling us that, hey, just do what I tell you, because we get it. We're already in that, and you're going to be there someday. Well, I think there needs to be a little more flexibility with that group. And that's what I guess.
Yeah.
When you take a look at compromise and balance, that's the way most healthy decisions are made.
Yeah.
Telling an entire group no and another group yes is hard to really kind of make it so that everybody gets along.
Yeah.
And no different again with tree ordinances and other things. I still feel a lot of the tree ordinances we have are a taking of real estate. I bought this property. I planted a couple of trees. I didn't know that 30 years later, if I left those trees, that they'd stay there and I could never use that property again for the future value. I can never meet my density. I can never create as many units as my neighbor because he didn't plant trees.
Yeah.
And now I'm locked in and I'm kind of screwed myself. That's the wrong way to look at this.
I should be able to replant trees, buy trees somewhere else, get tree credits, something of that nature. Something that's a compromise that allows attainable home ownership. One of the main points I want the listeners to get is that all of this land use stuff is going to continue to force appreciation. And that because of this land use stuff taking so long, we have a hole in multifamily coming in 26 and 27, and that you're going to see above average appreciation in the rural area because the lack of rural growth. And then thirdly, your kind of big opportunity is in that ADU, DADU space, middle housing. That's kind of the big opportunities. Any closing or final thoughts here, Mike, that you wanted to share?
You hit one of the high-end points. We're the only one that has the condo DADU ordinance in the rural area.
Is Snohomish County when you say we?
Snohomish County.
Okay. Yeah.
Again, it took me a year to get that through, and then we've approved. Yeah. And in the urban area for Snohomish County, a great tool for investment is we have let's say I have a 9,000 square foot lot.
Yep.
And I'm within the urban ground boundaries in the county's jurisdiction.
Yep.
And I'm in 4 to 6 units an acre. And when we just did our 10-year comp plan, everything around Martha Lake went from 4 to 6 units to 6 to 12. I just doubled my money.
Yep.
Just because I sat there. Everything in where 405 and I-5 kind of connected down there.
Canyon Park?
Well, yeah, Canyon Park, but down just south of where the point of those two, I-5 and 405.
Yep, south of 164.
Alderwood Manor, all the way through there. Yep. That went from 4 to 6 units to 6 to 12. Everybody doubled their money.
Wow.
And so some of those things I just stood in the way. That's not going to happen again for 10 years. And so if you think you're just going to go in, I get this question all the time, could I just rezone? Well, whatever your land use is right now is what you're going to have for 10 years. So no, you're not going to rezone unless that's what they gave you this time. That rural DADU ordinance is a big deal because it's talking about what you just said. How do I go find an acre and build a house and actually buy at a price that actually makes sense affordability wise? So that one's a big one. The other one that we didn't talk about real briefly was the other part of that DADU ordinance that we got approved in Snohomish County. On any residential lot in Snohomish County that doesn't have CC&Rs, that's in the county's jurisdiction, not the city's, inside the urban growth boundary.
Yeah, so
which is hundreds and
unincorporated.
Yeah. It's thousands. It's thousands of acres.
Yeah.
I can put a duplex on there to start with.
Yep.
Now I can get 2 DADUs on top of the duplex. So now on a single family lot in that area, I can get 4 units. Yep. I can do a 4-unit condominium. I get my DADUs are 1,200 square feet. So I could do 1,200 square foot, 2 stories. I could do a 4-unit condo. I could literally do a paper condominium and sell that. And now I'm a paper developer. I've got an ordinance we're running through here
And
that'll come.
for all of our listeners, this is exactly what we are doing in Bothell right now on the Bothell project, because we knew this was coming. We teed this up. We've been working on it, so we were able to basically create outsized returns on our project because we were following the land use, the land development code, and Mr. Applebee.
Well, thanks on that. We've got 2 more units I'm trying to push in there.
Yeah.
So now we're going to try to get to 6 units on there, get 2 dadoos for each side of the duplex. It still works. The lot coverage at 55% that the county's doing, that works. There's some things that I would just tell you that everything we're doing makes real estate more valuable. I would continue to say real estate's going to work. I would say that anything you do in an investment and you look at a 5 to 10 year return, it's going to do really well. The other part about real estate is I don't have to cash it out. I can just live off of my investment and my rental income.
Forever.
I mean, I can't do that with stocks and things, but I can do it with real estate. And so even though you're maybe you got crocodile arms right now and you're going, oh man, I don't know. You'd be surprised. Again, I don't like to overuse that. Well, just buy now and then just refinance.
Yeah.
I think that, and I think you're fair to say this too, that I don't think we're going to get interest rates much lower than the 5s.
No.
I think that's the long-term prognosis unless something crack in the earth happens. I think we're going to stay in the 5s. Of course, hang on to those 2s and 3s that you have, rent that house out, borrow some equity, whatever, cross-collateralize. But if you're looking at an investment plan, real estate has to be a part of it because of all the things that Anton said today about growth, no existing or no adding on to land. The 2 largest annexation areas, the North Lake Snohomish, city of Snohomish annexation is happening right now. The Arlington annexation east of Arlington, that's about 1,600 units or so. They're in the middle of that right now. And then we're about done with any reasonable size annexations.
Bingo. Yep.
And then all the cities have their stuff. They're all isolated. Anything outside of that's R5. So I don't know how you screw up real estate in the next 10 years. As a matter of fact, I think this next 10-year cycle, if I was 30-something, like I said, I'd be doubling down on real estate. Just make sure that, hey, and the other way to look at that is if I can't afford to, I can afford to get someone else that's a partner to do this with me. And then I've got half of something growing rather than half of nothing. And so find a way to get yourself involved. Understand that the counties and the cities are going to take care of you by density. In another 10 years, what do you think happens again? We double down again on density
100%.
Because we go, oh my gosh, we're over top of our projections. I was listening to Jeremy last night, and he's one of our county council members. And he was talking about the fact that, and again, I don't know that this is exact, but that we're one of the top 10 counties in the country for growth over the last decade or two. And at one point, us and Pierce and King were like number 1, 2, and 3 in the whole country, back in 2016 for growth, not business growth, but for population growth. So we have such a job market here that we're always going to draw people to this marketplace. The concern I have is now in the Seattle market, you have to make $200,000 a year to be able to afford a median house.
Bingo.
And I think that the interest rate thing, I'm disappointed personally, not that they care, that the Fed would keep this going and crush the real estate market. We haven't been able to drop prices yet, but I think this second half of the year, you'll see some price dropping. And that's when I would jump in, because we're at 2016 was the last time we were at this place where investors were buying about this much real estate. So we're at an 8-year low. And so I feel like this next half of the year, the smart guy buys real estate, doesn't have it constricted by CC&Rs. And we don't have to buy a 100-unit apartment building. You can buy one house that's going to get you 2 dadoos and decide how you want to play the game, because understand the future value of real estate, understand what you've said, and make sure you do a true feasibility on this. No different than you would get a financial planner to financial plan your future. There's a way to plan for your financial wealth in real estate. And you know that. You've been one of the most entrepreneurial guys I know in real estate. And it's funny you say that you're talking to brokers. I bet you half of the guys that I'm talking to about working with dadoos in North Everett are real estate brokers, because they've gone, okay, I get it. I've listened. I've followed. I know I can do this. You might just give me your list of guys and line me up, and I'm going to start doing some of this, because I don't see a way to lose on that size of a house. And I think
The risk is non-existent.
I think automatically they make their 20% inside of a year.
Yeah.
And then they get their equity built up to go do another one and another one. And all of a sudden, once they get their confidence, then that's their business. And that's what's been going on in King County. Your brethren in Seattle, there's probably 50 to 100 guys that are real estate brokers that are doing this for a living now.
Awesome.
And they only do 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah.
So thanks for the invite. This is a great little sit in the garage.
This is phenomenal. So for those of you that have questions, drop your questions in the comments. Thank you, Mike, for hanging out with us and sharing your knowledge and wisdom.
Love to be here. And thanks for all you do for the industry. I know we've got a great partnership in that.